Clips.
And remember, citizens, always subscribe. Hit the notification bell as well. And $19.95 plus shipping and handling will keep you out of hell. Alrighty, BibTubes, another one of Gabe's Clips. Welcome to the Daily PoliTITS. So if you like politics, but are sick of the tits, then get your fix from my Daily PoliTITS. So good morning, sorry, later than normal start, just running a bit late. But anywho, the election in the UK is ramping up. Thursday, I do believe. France have just had their first round of elections. The way they work it, they have a first round, people that get over 50% of the vote or something go through to the next round. But it looks like the far right, Le Pen's party, the ex-national front, have gained a lot of votes. So we'll have a look at that and we'll see what else is happening elsewhere in the world. So the Daily PoliTITS, it's a simple format. Go around as many English-speaking talking holes from around the world as possible. From Reuters to the BBC's. I'm sure that's John Sweeney and his bingo bus with Joe Rogan. God almighty. Anyway, to the Sky Newsies, that's Comcast. We'll have a look at the latest Nigel Farage spam bot machine shit on my channel. I've actually had to change the settings on the clips to make sure that none of them go up. Ridiculous, man. There's your freedom of speech. Freedom to annoy, irritate, spam, troll, be twats. That's what they want. No fucking freedom of speech. That's what they hide behind. Russia Today, Press TV, all English speaking, DW, the German wave, Deutsche, the German wave it translates into. NBC, the Yankee Doodle Dandies, that's the Chiners, English speaking Chiners, that's Nigel Farage's own TV. Is that him there? That is him there. That's like fucking Hitler with pyrotechnics in it. Woohoo! So have a wee look at that. Fox News, surprise, surprise, there's Trump and Vag side by side in their scary space. Have a look at ABC News America, Australia. What one was that? That's Fox. Associated Press, take a wee peek, and there's the BBC News for a wee bit of frame of reference, and I might even touch on Rupert Murdoch's talk. It's been put in the bin later on. In the morning, Gigi, English fans and commentators do my titties in left, right and centre, man. They really do. I mean, last night is the a perfect example of how 1 second they're the worst team in the world, next second they're winning it again. You couldn't get any more fickle. Literally, like fucking 94 minutes or whatever, like, Southgate out, this is a disgrace, this is going to be as bad as blah 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 blah, this is as bad as the fucking Hiroshima, this is worse than World War II. 2 seconds later, yes, they're going to go on and win it again, yes, this could be the spark that turn us into the best team in the world again. I wish the fans and commentators would shut the fuck up so I can enjoy the football. Anywho, let's go to RP first, because I hopefully paused it on the top of the hour, because the Rumble player is pish. It's not as good as the YouTube and the BBC's ones. It's hard to know where you are. But if it's worked, this should be the top of the hour.
How did the
In the morning, DJ. Why? Now, Shushan called an election sooner than some people were suspecting. There's Macron, Macaroon, right? That's his fucking name. So Macaroon over in France called a snap election. The election in America has been scheduled for some time. But it just begs the question, why now? Why now? I don't have any answers. I don't even know if I have a theory. I mean, like, the writing has been on the wall for ages for Macron. Shushan knows he was going to get his ass handed to them. So are they trying to cut their losses? Is that the theory? They're like, if we hang about much longer, we are not doing ourselves any favours. We are losing support, not gaining support. We better just cut right out now, get the cancer out, and then hopefully try and recover from there. That's kind of the only theory I've got, because both of them have done it at a stage where it's quite clear that they're both going to lose.
Paris burns as the National Rally Party takes the lead in the French legislative elections. With President Macron's defeat on the cards, the nation's Prime Minister issues...
La 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 la.
Our objective is clear: to prevent the National Rally from obtaining an absolute majority in the second round, from dominating Parliament, and therefore from governing the country with the nefarious plan it has in mind.
The establishment of the Government of National Unity in its current form is unprecedented democracy.
South Africa's president names a new coalition cabinet, with the opposition making its debut in the new
world is in
after
flux,
weeks
man.
of political wrangling. And Ukraine is told by the IMF to crack down on its rampant corruption as the financial institution releases another tranche of aid to Kiev from its bailout package.
Aid, also known as loans. You could call them a loan fucking shark, but
Good
we'll
morning
call
from
them
Moscow, where
IMF.
it's just gone 11 a.m. this Monday, the
Any
1st
mates?
of July. For myself and the team here at our HQ, thanks for choosing us.
She
Welcome
is
to
a
the
good
programme.
looking chicken. She's
Well, starting us off this hour, the chaos in France. Riots erupted across the nation on Sunday night following parliamentary elections, in which
I'm going to riot because of the baguette attacks. French rioting? Never heard of such gibber. This is clearly a conspiracy. The French never riot. Never, ever, ever.
President Macron's party came out the loser, and the National Rally Party took the lead in the first round of voting.
Yes, nothing says news like some dramatic music. I think we should just put the soundtrack for the Apocalypse Now on. Oh, come on to fuck RT, man. That is getting a very big bit pathetic, man. Why don't you just say there was riots? Somebody set a bin on fire. Look, here's a man. Look at the rioting. It's unbelievable. Look at the amount of police. There's got to be at least 12 there. At least 12. Unbelievable. And just to make it more unbelievable, here's some dramatic music.
My dear compatriots, democracy has spoken, and the French people have placed the National Rally and its allies at the forefront.
Le Pen is mightier than the sword. Or is it? Look, my pen's bendy. See, it's bending. But yet, a magic pen.
Practically erasing the Macronist bloc.
Well, Emmanuel Macron called for snap elections following his party's losses in last month's European parliamentary elections. That's after his call to send troops to Ukraine drew sharp criticism from his opponents. Well, chief among those is Marine Le Pen, whose party is, like I said, currently leading the race with almost 34%, while Jean-Luc Mélenchon's left-wing coalition drawing in second.
Right, so remember the tranny apocalypse only happens in windy liquors realities, you know, it doesn't happen on your high street. But I'm pretty sure, like, let me count the trannies. Does the internet's no tell you his missus used to be a dude, and of course Michelle Obama used to be a dude, or still is a dude, I don't even know. And I'm pretty sure they've threw a few other folk in there as well with that just obvious childlike smear propaganda bullshit. But no! I've seen a picture with a bulge! Must be true.
With 28. Meanwhile, the French Prime Minister has warned of Le Pen's party winning an outright majority.
Notre objectif est clair.
Our objective is clear: to prevent the national rally from obtaining an absolute majority in the second round, from dominating parliament, and therefore from governing the country with the nefarious plan it has in mind. I say this with all the force that the moment demands of each and every one of our voters. Not a single vote must go to the national rally. In this circumstance, France deserves no hesitation. We must never hesitate.
So there was a historically high voter turnout in this election, approaching 70%. Now that's a number that hasn't...
Unicorn made a comment the other day and I didn't know who he was talking about. She's got the eyes of Batman, and I think he was talking about her. I can see what he's talking about. She does have Batman's eyes.
Been seen since the legislative elections in France of 1986. Now, the big loser here, for sure, is
hanging in there, Barry, hanging in there.
Together Party, coming in third place with just 20% of the popular vote. Actually, he kind of blew it off himself with the grenade of parliamentary dissolution that Le Monde, the newspaper here in France, cited Macron saying that he wanted to toss at the anti-establishment right. That just happens to be the big winner in not only the European parliamentary vote last month with Team Macron in second place there, but also...
Now, I just, because of where we're at in the election time, left, right and centre, all over the world, and the barrage of bullshit for all angles, and it really is hard to figure out what way's up, you know, because a lot of people gravitate towards the people they think are telling the truth, like the Farages, the Donald Trumps, the strong men, you know. But ultimately they're as full of shite as the last dude. So with all this, like when Trump get put in, and they were saying, well, Russia was influencing the election, and Russia, oh, we weren't influeing the election, what are you talking about? This is them doing it. See, when the BBC report on what's happening in the Russian elections, that's them interfering in the Russian election, because it's not news, it's spin. They ain't reporting the facts. There is no wee guy in a suit going up today, the temperature is this, and this is what happened. Thank you very much. Blah, 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 Reuters. No, it's BBC, and it's all talking heads and opinion pieces. I mean, the best example, like people think Tommy Robinson got arrested for eating his breakfast, and people think that's news, some form of news, and if I could find that GB News shithole as well, I would point to that. Even though on GB News you get Reform candidates as presenters, you get Nigel Farage as a presenter, I'm pretty sure he's rocked up and done a few shows on it, and you get the demon headmaster, aka Jacob Rees-Mogg, as a presenter and stuff. They've even been fined for electioneering because of the demon headmaster, I prefer to call him, Rees-Mogg. And they're in some people's reality. Most people who think Tommy Robinson was arrested for eating breakfast and that Nigel Farage is some sort of saviour, and he's a man of the people, they'll believe that's news. Well, it says news in the title. They're an in-betweeny between information. They're the spin, they're the editor, they're the Piers Morgan between you and fucking what's actually really going on. The information they put out, the spin they put out on it, and the people they get on, the talking heads, how they frame shit, it's all with an editorial fucking stance, coming from the fucking place where their money comes from, which isn't that hard to figure out if you just scratch beneath the surface a ball hair. Just like all the papers, newspapers and stuff, scratch beneath the surface of them and you can see their political alliances. Anyway, let's get back to RT and
so in this election
Macron.
Now, he rolled the dice here and didn't even manage to come in second in this election, but third. So he's virtually...
Hold on, I'm going to finish the point I was trying to make. So, Putin's biggest adversary, the Russian Federation that's run by Putin, biggest adversary in the world right now is NATO, right? NATO's getting a wedge driven into it. By who? Well, there's a few players. The BRICS are all coming together. NATO's falling apart in the sense that the UK has fractured from the EU and kind of cozied up with the United States a wee bit more. So there's fractures going on within the NATO structure. Trump is making noise. Trump's who's going to be the next president, is making noises of getting all NATO members to stump up their 2.5% of GDP for the military-industrial complex, pay their fair share for NATO, or otherwise he's out. So NATO right now is a solid sing from the same hymn sheet entity, whereas the Russian Federation, they're all on the same page. So Putin, the Russian Federation, have a dog in the fight to promote the international nationalists and members in NATO NATO members, NATO countries, to weaken NATO, because the Russian Federation have a dog in the fight to weaken NATO, because that's basically who they're fighting for all intents and purposes in Ukraine and in Syria to a certain extent. So, to suggest that, Putin's just sitting there, he's a good guy, riding his horse, doing the best for Russia, he's fighting all the fascists, he's a great guy and all that, he would never interfere with anybody's election. They're all interfering with everyone else's elections. Why the fuck do you think I'm showing you, like, German broadcasters, Russian broadcasters, Chinese broadcasters, Iranian broadcasters, all fucking speaking in English? Yeah. It's because they're trying to influence other parts of the world through their fucking particular fucking brand of shite. And everybody's walking around, not everybody, right, but a lot of people, especially blinkers on, especially in social media bubbles, especially in the truther land, conspiracy land, picking their sides because of the cult of personality. I buy into Alex Jones, man, he's good on camera. I like Paul Juice Fro Watson, he's good on camera. That Corbett Report guy, man, he's really like fucking really a wee geek guy and all that. I get into him. Mike Rivero, man, I like him, he's a good talking head because he talks about the Palestinian thing. What about this guy, what about this guy, what about this guy? A lot of different talking heads resonating with different people who buy into the cult of personality and ultimately listen to what they're saying. And they're swayed by them because why? They're influencers. I mean, it's not that hard to it's not that hard to not only fucking observe, but it's not that hard to believe that people have a dog in the fight to do this shit. From people sitting in America, the UK, Australia, etc., Russia, fucking China, etc., Iran, etc., man. Anyway, let's get back to Batman Eyes and the rise of the...
Guaranteed himself a final 3 years of this presidency as a captain adrift legislatively, constantly fighting with whatever crew he ultimately ends up with in the National Assembly as government. And both sides of the anti-establishment political divide on both the right and the left are celebrating that.
Aye. So yeah, I remember now, because I remember getting some YouTube clips
in
here.
line with our principles and our
In the
consistent
rounds, you know.
positions in all previous elections, will not allow the National Party to win anywhere, which is why we'll withdraw our candidacy in the event that they come first and we come third.
So in the second round runoff
playing
set for
politics.
next Sunday, July 7th, candidates in any districts with more than 12.5% of the theoretical number of registered voters, not just those who actually voted, can stay in the race. And what Mélenchon is now saying is that in the case of a three-way race in any district where it looks like vote splitting between Team Macron and the left, his coalition, could risk putting the National Rally candidate over the top. He wants the leftist candidate, if they meet that threshold for being allowed to stay in the running in third place, to just drop out, which would mean that Team Mélenchon would effectively be supporting Team Macron and their establishment candidates in those cases. Now, Marine Le Pen's National Rally Party on the anti-establishment right came in first with 33% of the vote, and there are even projections already of a potential National Rally majority government after the next round, with an estimated 260 to 310 seats potentially in a 577-seat national
Maybe
assembly,
the
where
new Hitler is going to
289
fucking start in
seats are required
France.
for a majority. The anti-establishment left's New Popular Front coalition, so Mélenchon's team, came in second at 28% in this
Fucking
first round
Europeans,
race.
man.
Each of
Can't
those
fucking
two
take them
parties also
anywhere
has a
without
few
fucking
dozen MPs who have
spitting out a wee
already
dictator or
safely
two.
won their seats with over 50% of the vote in the first round in their ridings, and that includes Marine Le Pen herself. 32 seats for the coalition left and 40
not a
for
Spanish
Team Le Pen have
crackpots
already been
repented
nailed
through
down.
the years.
So now
Hitler,
there's going to be a reshuffling of
Stalin,
the electoral cards heading
Mussolini,
into the last
fucking
one more week of campaigning
Europeans.
ahead of this final round. And this is where, as predicted, it's going to come down to a battle for the ideological soul of France. We're getting down to the ideological
international
nitty-gritty now,
nationalism.
right versus
It
left.
makes
Already we're seeing
perfect
Team Macron,
sense.
including Macron himself and his Prime Minister Gabriel Attal, demanding that French voters support the National Rally's opponents in the second round, even if they have to hold their noses and vote left.
On to South Africa now, where President Cyril Ramaphosa has established his new cabinet of ministers. The freshly formed coalition government sees top seats shared between the African National Congress, the Democratic Alliance, and a number of other opposition parties. In a televised speech, the nation's leader hailed this as an unprecedented form of democracy.
The establishment of the Government of National Unity in its current form is unprecedented in the history of our democracy. We have had to consider how to form a new government in a manner that advances the national interest, that also gives due consideration to the outcome of the election, and that makes use of the respective capabilities within each of the parties represented.
The president puts emphasis on unprecedented because this administration is not just any other chapter in South Africa's democratic journey, but a new beginning marked by a historic unity and collaboration. South Africa is embarking on a new era with a miraculous government, promising inclusive governance and a brighter future for all its citizens. And this new cabinet, which will lead
South African mob are getting free gold bars as well. That's amazing. Macron, I think their party's promising free gold bars. Nigel Farage, he's promising free gold bars and lead bars as well, but the lead bars are to put in the brown people's boats so they sink. These politicians are great. I don't know why I'm so sceptical. That's it. I'm going to start voting again. This is great fun. I'm just going to take them on face value this time, you know. I'm sure they're telling the truth this time.
But there were two notable political parties which did not join the new government of national unity, former President Jacob Zuma's MK party and the Economic Freedom Fighters. In the last minute, though, the EFF said it would only join the GNU if the DA and the Freedom Front Plus were excluded from the union. The MK party has also completely refused to work with the current leadership of the ANC, including President Cyril Ramaphosa, saying this is a white-led, unholy alliance between the DA and the ANC. President Cyril Ramaphosa, which was supposed to do this announcement a few days after being inaugurated, but decided to cut it fine. And also, speaking of cutting, the president was supposed to cut interim ministers from this new cabinet and merge some departments, but because there's 11 political parties in this new government of national unity, he had to increase it to accommodate all these other political parties, making this the largest cabinet compared to many developed countries. And of course, the process of forming this cabinet was not without any challenges. However, President Ramaphosa says the commitment to dialogue and consensus building has shown that even the most complex problems can be solved through much cooperation. There's many other challenges facing this new government, one being the issue of foreign policy of South Africa. The ANC insists that it will not change its positions in many international issues, including its support for the Palestinians, despite the new coalition.
Ding! Alright, I forgot that South Africa were one of the people that were raising a lot of are one of the main players that were raising stuff in the International Criminal Court or International Court of Justice. I'm not sure both. Are they one of the same? So now it does make sense as to the attention that's getting brought onto South Africa's internal politicking. That makes sense.
Agreement, yet analysts argue that a coalition-led South Africa may need to make internal trade-offs in pursuing some of the positions the ANC has taken on the international stage in the past few months, in fact in the past few years, because you would remember that the support was more muted among the country's other political parties when it comes to the ICJ case, the ANC's main rival at the time.
GG, that's a vote winner and a half. Lower the voting age down to 16, which I think has been done up here, by the way. I'm not 100% sure, don't quote me on that. I think has been done up in Scotland. But down not elsewhere. Lower the voting age to 16 or maybe even 12. Fuck it, get 12-year-olds voting. And then say you're going to legalise weed and a free vape for everybody. Boom! You're in. You're fucking in. I could write an immense manifesto.
Well, speaking to RT, former South African ministerial advisor Sipho Sipa praised the makeup of the new government.
The president has actually done well. He has been listening to the concerns that people had raised around the issue of approaching these appointments in a technicist manner. One will remember that the ANC and the DA had been at loggerheads about who should get how many ministerial positions. And the DA has been very vocal in talking about what it calls the will of the people. It was quite surprising after this wrangling that he'll bring smaller parties and give them ministerial positions. And what was most interesting is for him to bring parties that do not have major representation and gave them ministries, and especially those who come from the black parties. So what the DA had anticipated is to have a stronger hand. But when you look at this composition, you can see that he brought people who themselves have were at loggerheads strongly with the DA. So it is part of his attempts to neutralize. But at the same time, he sought also to respect that the DA would need to have more ministers given its showing. So what we have here, he was looking at the durability of also the government of national unity.
Fomenting Europe's biggest war since World War II. That's the accusation the NATO chief has cast in Beijing's direction. Jens Stoltenberg further claims that China is secretly supplying Russia with electronic equipment crucial to the manufacturing of drones and missiles. But the Serbian president has a different take, stating that Western powers are actually ignoring Beijing's calls for peace and instead pushing for further bloodshed.
Because no one will immediately stop the fire as the People's Republic of China is asking for. Because everyone wants to defeat the other. Because until people die from the West or only volunteers die, they don't care how much Ukrainians will suffer. They don't care how much Russians or anyone else will suffer. Russia has enough oil, gas, phosphate, gold, silver, everything you need.
Well, in the meantime, Russian forces are advancing all along the front line. The country's defense ministry reports that army units have now taken control of the Sporne and Novoalexandrovka settlements. They're both located in the Donetsk Republic. Just some footage here of an Acacia self-propelled howitzer in the area taking aim at Ukrainian positions. Well, the weekend also saw the IMF approve $2.2 billion in additional funding for Ukraine under its existing loan program. However, one of the terms dictates that the country step up its fight against corruption. In recent times, concern has been growing over reports of officials pocketing millions of Western aid dollars. RT correspondent Roman Kosrev has more.
The International Monetary Fund has released another $2.2 billion from its $15.6 billion bailout package for cash-strapped Ukraine. However, the notoriously corrupt Kyiv government was given an ultimatum. The IMF demands that Ukraine amend the customs code in order to enhance the fight against corruption and ensure transparency in the recruitment of customs staff.
On anti-corruption, they commit to advance critical reforms such as strengthening the criminal procedural code, creating a new high administrative court, and completing the first ever external audit of the National Anti-Corruption Bureau. The external audit of NABU should be completed promptly and its results leveraged to enhance the Bureau's accountability and operational effectiveness.
The real question is, will these efforts actually help the country that's been drowning in graft for decades, or does the IMF really believe in the possibility of defeating corruption in Ukraine? An endless stream of international funding funneled to Ukraine remains largely unaccounted for. There are a number of reports in that regard that seem to go unnoticed by mainstream media, even when they come from pro-Ukrainian groups.
The Kharkov Regional State Administration has transferred multi-million contracts for the construction of fortification structures with a total of $173 million to dummy companies.
According to Ukrainian officials, some 40% of the national economy lacks any transparency or accountability.
According to our accounts, some 40% of the economy is
potentially
in the shadows.
With all that money
I think it's
sloshing
obvious
about,
that
there's
this
people
applies
on
to
the
the
take.
agricultural sector, including the export of agricultural products.
Corruption has spread throughout all sectors of the economy as the country descends.
Top of the hour, so let's go and see. I'm pretty sure the BBCs will be covering Macron, and we can go back to the top of the hour here.
Hello, I'm Marianne Mashiri. A very warm welcome to BBC News this morning. France is waking up to a changed political landscape after Marine Le Pen's far-right National Rally Party triumphed in the first round of the snap parliamentary elections. President Macron has called for centre and left-wing parties to unite ahead of the next round of voting, which will determine the makeup of the country's National Assembly. Well, according to the Interior Ministry, National Rally and its allies gained 33% of the popular vote. The left-wing New Popular Front came second with 28%. President Macron's centrist alliance reached 20%. With this report, here's our Paris correspondent,
Macron.
A dramatic win yesterday for France's National Rally. The party was for years considered too extreme for most French voters, with its anti-immigration, Eurosceptic platform and its links to the Kremlin. But last night, the RN,
it's links to the
secured
Kremlin.
more than
Sound familiar, anybody? Sound familiar? International nationalism. Right, I know it's an oxymoron, it's hard to get your head round, but that's what's fucking happening. There is a coordinated global effort. I mean, Donald Trump and fucking Nigel Farage don't even hide it, man. Having fucking public cock trains, man. Jim Dawson was over in Hungary setting up wee Christian enclaves. In fact, I think Nick Griffin and a lot of the BNP fuckpals have fucked over there to start up wee Christian enclaves. And Jim Dawson was supplying a lot of Hungarians with military, apart not guns or anything, but everything bar guns, military equipment to stop the brown people coming across the border. And Jim Dawson was the money man who would make a lot of money for the BNP back in the time. So extreme, he get kicked out the Orange Order, and I believe he's the marketing mastermind between all the different talking heads, demographic, Britain First, Tommy Robinson, etc., Knights Templar, etc., because he's set up these different talking heads to resonate with different demographics, different people in different bubbles, and then those bubbles get created, and within those bubbles everybody blows smoke up each other's ass and thinks, oh, everybody loves Fudge, everybody loves Tommy, everybody loves fucking Jim Dawson, and fall into these social media bubbles, rebel rousing, and then when it comes to election time, boom shakalaka, everybody's voting for reform, not response, reform.
Third of all votes. The party's leader is Marine Le Pen, who has her eye on winning the French presidency next.
Les Français ont ainsi, dans un vote sans ambiguïté, témoigné.
She told the country it had nothing to fear from a right-wing RN-led.
Right, I need to get my head round this. They've got a president and a prime minister. We've seen the babyface prime minister earlier on. The reason I'm clarifying this is because I was a bit confused myself. I didn't, because I know that the National Front, or whatever they're called now, have somebody running for prime minister, but this is her making her move for president. President's like the king, head of state. Prime minister's head of parliament, or the head minister. Prime minister. Optimus Prime Minister.
But there is
National
voting here next weekend, and things could still change. After yesterday's vote, President Emmanuel Macron called for centrist and left-wing parties to form a united front to keep the RN out of power. Will it work? It's going to be a struggle. And all this in the middle of Paris's preparations for the Olympic Games later this month. Many French are worried about their country's deep political polarisation. The road ahead will become clearer.
Sound familiar to anybody? But all this nationalism is all ground roots. Ground root. Nah, what's the fucking saying I'm trying and I forgot. But these are all nice and organic organisations coming from the people who have just had enough. It's not a coordinated effort globally by people people trying to move the general populace, rebel rousing, creating the great fear on a global scale to move people politically. And they use this by they do this by things like this. Not like that. Things like this. Monkey propaganda. Oh, the big bad boogeyman's coming to get you, steal our women, hit you over the head with a club. And it's as simple on a base level as that. That's what's getting done through the power of the internet. But just stick that monkey in a boat. Boom shakalaka. You've got everything. Nigel Farage, Le Pen, Donald Trump. A massive tool in their box that they're using to mobilise the great unwashed. Some would say that they're using fear. I mean, that's never been done before. Controlling masses of populations, get them to go and get their pitchforks and kick out who they've been told is to blame for fucking all their struggles. You know, it's not like fucking the great unwashed idiots. The mass populi has ever been used by people in ivory towers before for their purposes. Well, the great unwashed thinks they're fighting for freedom, or there are guns, or save our women, or make sure our country stays Christian, or whatever bullshit tripe gets spun. I mean, this hasn't been done before. This isn't the only time in memorial that this has been done either. This isn't a new trick. This is a tried and tested method of fomenting change in a country. Look at Maidan. There's another tried and tested method. Euromaidan, Euromaidan, whatever people want to brand it. Anyway, this is all new, folks. We're at the pinnacle of civilization. Nobody could pull the wool over our eyes. We've got Facebook and YouTube and fucking interwebs. How could anybody ever manipulate us? The mainstream media is dead. Long live the internet, because the TV lies to you, the newspaper lies to you, but the TV and the fucking pussies I put on the pedestal on the interwebs all tell me the truth. All hail King Tommy. All hail Alex Jones. All hail David Icke. All hail Sargon of Mossad. Count Spunkula, they'll never lie to me. They'll always tell me the truth. They can't be manipulated. They're all truth tellers, because they told me they tell the truth. I'm pretty sure they had a name with truth in it one time. Oh, hail these talking heads on the interwebs. Oh, man. Well, hold on, let's get back to the truth.
In a week's time, when a second round of voting will determine France's future. That could be months of political deadlock. It could be a seismic political shift to the hard right, with huge implications.
Organic, thanks Gigi, I think that's the word I was looking for. This is all organic, grassroots. Organic grassroots movement.
Live to Hertfordshire now, and the Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer is on the campaign trail. Let's have a listen.
No, fuck that. Exterminate. You're a family that's going to get exterminated. Exterminate. Ready to the business. I was down the boozer the other day, spoke to little Bob. He told me I want melted Wellington boots to run my country. Yeah. Oh, dearie me.
Change is for you, but change only happens.
The organic I made a video the other day talking about beware of Nigel Farage and reform. They're going to groom you for 2029. And then yesterday he had his little pyrotechnic Hitler rally. And the boy here that I heard of it on Twitter, funnily enough, man. I'm going to explore fucking going live on the tweeters. Anyway, but the wee boy here, I heard of it on the Twitters. He's in fact he's out there. His stick right now is he wants to build a massive he wants to build a massive movement for change for 2029. Woo! He's good, and he's going to use brown people in boats to do that. He's going to use the state of the country to do that. He's going to use the knife crime shit that's happening down in fucking England to do that. And he's just going to use everything that everybody's pissed off about as a way of grooming you for him and his fucking banking buddies. Big business backers. Fucking, he's going to got the NHS and turn it into what he deems fit. And again, this guy isn't wee Bob for down the street because you see him drinking a pint one day and he's got fucking horrible teeth. Yeah. He's an investment. He's for the city of London. And the city of London is a different world when you're in that banking world, man. It's kind of like he's a mixture between the banking class and the political class. What a fucking horrible mixture. What a horrible mixture. Plus, sprinkle on top of that his charisma and his ability to speak. He can think. He's very lively on his feet. He can think on his feet quite well. You know, he's no Joe Biden in a debate. He can very much hold his own. Full of charisma, and if you listen to him too long, you'll end up starting to be one of his fanboys too. Unlike this guy. Exterminate.
That could happen.
Oh, God almighty.
Again, in the way that...
Oh, that's grassroots. Man of the people with all these pre-printed signs dished out to people who want to be part of the political apparatus, standing behind them. Where are the normal people that actually want to listen to some of these talkheads? Do you know what? They're not there. They either get something better to do, or they couldn't give a flying fuck about any of these people. So they have to get people from the party to stand behind them to give some sort of an air of support. Look at the American rallies. In fact, even look at Nigel Farage's Hitler with pyrotechnics rally yesterday. That had a good turnout, but that had pre-printed signs as well, man, which is always a bad sign. It's not a bad sign, it's a sign of stage management. That's what it's a mega sign of. Right, I've got Spaceballs technology. If you don't know what Spaceballs technology is, watch the film Spaceballs. It's, I don't know if it's aged well, but it was good back in the day. But it means that I can fast forward and rewind.
An up round
reality.
To change our couple, to bring us...
If you would...
Don't wake
remember,
up
this is live.
3 important question titles. Change governed boss. And
that was Sir Keir Starmer there in Hitchin on the campaign trail.
Oh, that perfect
he referred
timing.
there, didn't he, to a pillow. I think Sky's Beth Rigby referred to a pillow. It's part of the Labour campaign. Let's show you a picture of what they're referring to. This is the latest nightmarish warning, in Labour's words, about what could potentially happen if voters vote in the Conservatives and another 5 years of Conservative rule, waking up to 5 more years with Rishi Sunak there. Obviously, that's not a real photo of Rishi Sunak in bed. That's been superimposed, but that was what they were referring to. If you
called off the search for that missing teenager over in Tenerife.
Now, we will, of course, bring you all the very latest on all the leaders and the campaign trails with our correspondents who are on various campaign buses today. A little bit later in the programme, but now let's talk to you about the football.
It's a campaign bus meant to inject some sort of a
quarterfinals of the Euros after a dramatic last-minute goal. Gareth Southgate's team were moments away from being sent home by Slovakia.
Right, that's enough of that.
Falls today, but a warning of signs bills will rise again this winter. And we're live at Wimbledon and expecting Andy Murray's
How do you like
on
this
whether he'll
for
play.
a price decrease?
We've caught up with him.
They're going to decrease it by 7%, but only for a few months until they increase it by 10%. So in reality, it's going up.
My right leg, which is not obviously where I would want to be, but it's been getting better every single day.
Heads to the polls and the party leaders are out and about in force today. Correspondents are on. And Matthew Thompson. The Labour Party were expecting to hear from Keir Starmer in the next few minutes.
Middle of the turnout, which
they're covering that pish too.
That 14 going to is a fine.
Why did they always feel the necessity to roll their sleeves up? I'm talking to the guy to his left, obviously. Can't just wear a shirt. No, I need to roll my sleeves up.
You bastard.
Have you heard of a short-sleeved shirt?
Putting it before the electorate as a credible force for change.
Change, stop the chaos, build, change, chaos. Build change, stop the chaos, build and change.
Far left. What lessons do you draw from that?
The lesson that I take from nationalism and populism, wherever it is across Europe, obviously we're seeing the results emerging from France, but we also see the situation in other countries across Europe and across the world. The lesson I take from that is that we need to address the everyday concerns of so many people in this country who feel disaffected by politics, who feel that on this Thursday feel either that the country's too broken to be mended, or that they can't trust politicians because of what the Tories have done after the last 14 years. We have to take that head on. And
No. We don't trust politicians because of Margaret Thatcher, John Major, fucking Cameron, Blair, Brown, even Corbyn to a certain extent. You know, there's never been a genuine opposition. Just like he isn't a genuine opposition, man. Man of the People, King's Council, Jimmy Savile cover upper. I mean, it's a farce. And anybody, in my humble opinion, anybody that participates with that, regardless of what clown you vote for, you're consenting to the whole shit show. And for the right up until 2029, you can't really complain because you're getting what you voted for, which is more of the same. So I don't know. In fact, I don't want to tell anybody what to do. I just, for myself, when was, that must be about 8 years ago or something now that I held my own general election, probably 9 or 10 actually, now I think about it. And since then, I've been like, I'm out, man. None of this is in my name. None of it. I've not consented to any of it. None of it. Not one decision is in my name, because I was like, I don't trust any of the clowns, and I'm not giving any of them my consent. And people who say, well, if you don't vote, you've not got a right you shouldn't have a say in all that jazz. I believe that, aye. But in the same token, I shouldn't have their shit imposed on me. So because I'm the founding father of Estonia, my own country, for my own elections, I negotiate with with the state, and it's a cost-benefit analysis. I negotiate these terms.
We have to show on Thursday in the United Kingdom and across Europe and the world that only progressives have the answers to the challenges.
What's progressives, mate? Progressing just means moving forward. You can move forward by implementing conservatism, socialism, communism, any ism you want. It's just a buzzword. It's just a word with meaningless.
Country and across Europe, we have to make that progressive.
Oh look, he's got rid of his magic wand, but now he's got a karate chop.
Cause, but we have to, in making that, understand why it is, certainly in the United Kingdom, after 14 years of chaos and failure, that people do feel disaffected with politics, return politics to service, and continue to make that argument that politics is a force for good. Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Right, so maybe the penny's dropping, or people can now see sort of a crackpot crazy argument that you get the in my head, the ideal scenario is get the turnout to such a pathetic amount. I mean, I would love it to be zero. Imagine nobody turned up to vote apart from the politicians. And they couldn't police it, they couldn't stop it, they couldn't kettle people, they've not got the riot squads to stop this shit. People don't need to all congregate in the one place. Local people can congregate at their local polling station. So there's a handful of people. The cops don't have enough numbers to go out. And to do what? Stop people standing there with a shoebox and going, Don't vote for this mob. Don't vote for this whole charade system. Let's take away our consent for these institutions so we can go back to the drawing board and see where we want to start again. Let's draw a line under this fucking charade. This joke, Punch and Judy politics pish, as if any of it matters. This, you've got the right to protest, but it doesn't make a difference pish. You've got the right to strike unless the government say so. It's just where my head's at, especially running up to an election. But my head's been in this same place for a long time now. A lot of people don't get it. They want to start up their own political parties. Jog on, man. Go and start up the Raven Looney fucking monster party. Oh, wait, that's been done. It's a joke. You want to share allegiance to the king to get into parliament to make a change? Dib, dib, dib. Batter in. You'll get sucked into the system and spat out. Look at the difference George Galloway's made since he's been in parliament. George who? Exactly. You just shut the fuck up. One singer, one song cannot make a difference in that parliament, and the parliament has no power anyway. Believe it or not, everything gets decided behind closed doors with fucking men sitting in wood panel rooms making these decisions, and then the whips come out like whoosh, 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 just controlling the whole party, which is full, and the people join them. It's a charade, man. It is an absolute charade.
In the first round of the French election.
Macron,
Well, the latest results show Marine Le Pen and Jordan Bardella's National Rally Party got 33.14% of the popular vote. The left-wing coalition, the New Popular Front, is in second place on 27.99%.
What was the turnout? This will be interesting in comparison. Have French people lost faith in their politics? Like we have America's fucking ball deep, and they're all culted out, man. They've got their teams, they've got their cars, they've got their guns, bombs, and bullets already, man. Voter turnout. Oh, there we go. Oh, good. That's on France 24. I've been looking to get that. In fact, right. Let's go and watch it on France 24. This will be
absolutely, there is, yes. But so here, the Interior Ministry has only just announced that at 5 p.m.
Right, so out of the people who register to vote in France, and I would love, in fact, I might even do it myself at one point, crunch the numbers. Right, so even the people that are registered to vote in France, which won't be everybody, I don't know the population of France, etc., etc. But where the fuck did that go, man? Oh, there's it. Only 6 out of 10. Only 6 out of 10 people who are registered to vote turned out. And again, as I said, that won't be like, it's not like 6 and 10 people in France. It's 6 or 10 people who have registered. I don't know the technical aspects exactly how it all works in France to like register, yada yada yada, whether you legally, see in Australia, do you know you legally need to vote or register and all that jazz? You can't just opt out. So what I'm doing over here when come election time, well, what I'm doing over here is illegal in in Australia, believe it or not. Because I'm a criminal. Anyway, let's listen to this. So, I just like to bring these numbers to people's attention. Because we're, in the West, we're sold democracy scam is rule by majority. Which sounds very reasonable to most people, doesn't it? It does. It sounds very, very, very reasonable. Oh, everybody gets a vote and then the majority wins. I'm all good with that. But when you actually go and start crunching the numbers with people's apathy towards the fucking system, which never serves them continuously, and just how they crunch the numbers and stuff, you'll find that the people who end up calling the shots get a very, very, very small minority of the people of the vote of the people of the country voting for them. But everybody, a lot of people can't see beyond the cult of personalities. They see Farage is going to solve the brown people and votes problem. I'm all in on him. He's saying what I like to hear. He's talking about conspiracies, and I love Bigfoot and UFOs, man. I'm all in on Farage.
PM, that's 9 hours into voting. Turnout is at a whopping 59.39%. That is almost 20% higher than it was at the same point in the 2022 elections. Now, some cities will have their polls
20% higher. Okay, that means, let me do my crazy maths, because I'm a mathematic genius here. I can't read, I can't spell, but homina. That would mean that there was only 40% turnout in the last one, which means 4 in 10 people, not 4 in 10 people of the whole country, 4 in 10 people who are registered to vote only bothered their arse turning out. And how many people register to vote in France? Again, that's technical aspects I am not 100% aware of, but these are things worth thinking about when we're all getting sold democracy. Do you know voting isn't unique to modern democracy scam as we're sold it? Because most parliaments worldwide, believe it or not, are modelled on the UK model, which pretty much gives the parliament sweet Fanny Adams. It's a popularity contest at best, with little to no power. Little to no power, especially anything that matters. And that is fucking, unfortunately, that is the reality of most modern day parliaments as well. Because as I said, if you go and look into the structure of them, you'll see most of them, if not all, are very similar, especially in the Commonwealth and all that jazz. Very similar, if not identical, models to the UK one. Which UKIP in the moment are arguing isn't fair, because they want proportional representation. But again, that's easily as corruptible as the current system.
closing in just an hour. Big cities like Paris, they will remain open until 8 p.m. But this is an enormous figure. It's worth bearing in mind that the last two elections, parliamentary elections, total turnout throughout the day where it came in at under 50%. So this is a real coup in terms of proving that this is a really exceptional election, and voters are particularly galvanised.
Yeah, as you said, Antonia, it's a huge number. It looks like it's bigger as well than in 1997. And how is that higher turnout likely to impact these results?
Well, what we need to bear in mind here is that the French legislative...
Well, it looks like Le Pen has managed to mobilise the youth through the power of the fucking windy licking social medias to go and vote for the far right. It looks like the far right have went through the roof in their voting, and so you could argue the higher turnout is due to people turning out to vote for the far right because they've been poked with such a stick about the things that the far right PoliTITS around the world are all chatting about. Let's see if this is why. Oh God. People that vote are giving your consent to... I'm tired of saying it. You're giving your consent to a system that you probably won't like once it gets put in place, and then you should have no... You've got nothing to complain about because you consented to everything. Anyway, let's listen to the end of this bad boy.
Election process, the way the votes are counted, does take into account voter turnout. For a race to settle in one round, which some races will, it won't be the majority, a candidate has to get an absolute majority in terms of votes cast, but for that to count, there needs to have been a 50% turnout or more. Most races will go through to a second round, and what usually happens is there are only two horses in that race, if you will, because you need 12.5%
modern day democracies, the way they're structured, they're a fucking joke,
voters,
absolute joke.
In order to qualify for that second round.
And if you dare suggest anything else, you're either a communist, socialist, or this, that, instead of here, what about making a new thing? What about thinking outside the box? Voting isn't exclusive to democracies. Remember that as well. Like, you can vote in other structures or other concepts or other ideologies.
Higher turnout will push up those numbers so more candidates meet that threshold. So we could have a record number of what are called triangulars. There were only 8 in 2022 and 1 in 2017. So this is a really historic moment and could really change the shape of the campaign and the results.
Right, so let's go and get it out the frog's mouth, as they say.
Now the programme continuing, of course, to cover the French elections for you. Also, we're going to be talking about other issues as well in Talking Europe and Access Asia coming up for you.
Ooh, good.
First, the headlines. The far right here in France in pole position after the first round of voting in legislative elections. The National Rally winning just over 33% of the vote, with the left-wing bloc coming second and President Emmanuel Macron's centrists in third place. Now a week of intense campaigning ahead of the second round next weekend. We're going to talk very shortly to our reporter Clovis Casali, who's at the far-right headquarters where a cabinet meeting is getting underway around that. We'll talk to him shortly. And crucial decisions set to be made by parties and candidates as to whether to pull people out of the already reduced races in the second round to try to ensure the far right cannot win an overall majority. The prediction that they won't
democracy, backroom deals. People don't get what they want. You don't vote for people with policies. It's all fucking playing the numbers. It's like going to Vegas and trying to fucking jack the table, you know what I mean? That's what politics is, playing with the numbers.
Right is at the gates of power, says the French Prime Minister Gabriel Attal.
That's why Donald Trump turned up on Alex Jones, told us he was going to tell people who killed JFK and who done 9/11.
He wants to be the Prime Minister of
Did Trump tickle your balls with that one?
Elections here ahead of an intense week of campaigning. Let's remind you first of all of those percentages, the crucial figures, the final results showing the far-right National Rally won just over 33% of the vote, the left bloc on 28%, Emmanuel Macron's centrists on 20%, and that turns into, in the second round, what that could mean for the number of seats won overall, with the National Rally in purple on the pie chart, which we'll bring up for you in just a second here, likely not to win the majority of 288 needed. There you go, but it could be very close. Intense negotiations underway of many candidates about who might pull out in order to try to
now they just need to go on a few more seats.
Of blocking the far right from power. Whatever the results, though, it is a huge victory for the far right. Let's hear first of all from the far right leader, Marine Le Pen.
La démocratie a parlé. Democracy has spoken, and the French people have put the National Rally and its allies in the lead and have practically wiped out the Macronist bloc. First of all, as a political leader, I am delighted with the high turnout, which gives particular strength to tonight's results.
High turnout, and it was only like 60%. Think of that.
After 7 years
Democracy is a joke.
power.
Marine Le Pen there. Well, a lot of impetus then for the right, but a big caveat to that, and I think if you've been watching over the last couple of understands, you'll understand that it is very, very hard to predict. And Ketevan Gorgistani, international affairs editor, is with us. Explain to us why then, because it is very complicated, isn't it?
Well, there are two main reasons why it's complicated. First of all, the two-round French electoral system in the parliamentary election makes it complicated anytime because it's 2 rounds, so the two leading candidates go into the second round, but they're not alone because they can be joined by any other candidate that reaches a 12.5% threshold of registered voters. And that is important because in general, it's a pretty tough threshold to reach if you're not in the top 2.
Registered voters, so you do need to register.
Like
it's
we've
not
had this time around,
a legal
which is at around
requirement or anything in
65%.
France.
That 12.5%
By
of
the
registered
sounds of it.
voters, much easier to cross. And that is why you have officially around 300 cases where you'll have at least 3 candidates in the second round. They're called triangular second rounds, 3 candidates, but you also have several quadrangulars with 4 candidates going into the second round. So that makes it already hard to predict how these things are going to split. And then you add to that this idea of désistement, which is candidates who are officially qualified for the second round, but who decide to step away from the race, to give up on their chance in order to prevent one or the other party from winning that seat. Most of the time, in this case, it's going to be trying to block the national rally from winning that seat. So you'll have, for example, candidates, and it's already happened, candidates from Macron's alliance who are stepping down because they're third in the race, and they're letting the left-wing coalition, giving them the biggest chances of being able to beat the national rally. And same thing where the left-wing coalition candidate is in third place, stepping down also. And so that creates even more uncertainty because you don't know how these votes are going to split in the end, especially because you can step down, you can have your party asking you to step down, but in the end, it's the voter that decides. And some polls show that a very broad majority of voters decide on their own and don't necessarily follow the logic of these so-called changes in voting and voting blocks. So all of that is why you're seeing these sort of wide margins of whether or not the far right is going to have the absolute majority, a big majority, or a slim majority.
So far, though, the left seems to be being a little bit clearer about giving advice to its voters about who they should vote for. Those voters who voted for Emmanuel Macron, it's a little less clear, isn't it?
Exactly. The left-wing coalition, the France Unbound, is one of the parties in this coalition with the Socialists, with the Greens. Their
Watch the
leader
bookies
came out
cook
very
my
quickly,
money.
Jean-Luc Mélenchon, after yesterday's result, and he was extremely clear. Not a single vote to the national rally. And if you are one of our candidates and you're in third place behind Macron's alliance, you need to step away because we cannot have the national rally winning that seat. For the government, Gabriel Attal, the prime minister, came out and said not a single
That's
vote
like the amount
for
of votes the far
national
right are
rally, and
getting
called
across
for an
Europe.
alliance of
Now,
democratic
if
candidates.
everywhere in
And
Europe
so you're
adopted
already
a
seeing
proportional
some
representation,
of those candidates of Macron's alliance stepping away
it'd be
in
fucking
order
marching
to allow
back into
the left-wing
fucking
bloc to have better chances of beating
Nazi
the national
Germany
rally.
territory,
That
man.
said, within Macron's alliance, the right wing of that alliance is not exactly on the same page, and there are some disagreements, specifically when it comes to candidates who are not, for example, from the Socialist Party, but who are from France Unbound. And some on the right wing of Macron's coalition say we need to look case by case who is that candidate of the left-wing bloc. If it's the Socialist Party, no problem, we will step aside. But if it is France Unbound, we need to look exactly at who it is and then make our decisions, some even going as far as saying the left bloc or the far right bloc, both are bad, we need to stay in. So you're seeing a sort of mixed messaging, and it looks like Macron's alliance is trying to figure things out today because the deadline for those candidates is going to be tomorrow at 6 p.m.
Ketevan, thanks very much. Ketevan Gorgistani, our international affairs editor. Well, over the last hour or so, the main movement, if you like, seems to have been amongst the far right. We're going to cross now to Clovis Casali, our reporter who's at the far right's headquarters.
Now, bear in mind
Clovis,
here, hold on,
cabinet
look.
meeting, if that's the right way of describing it, is
This is
happening
French
in the
public
building,
broadcaster.
behind you there today.
They
What
also
might
get
be
money from
decided?
the
What
European
could come
Union
out of
some
it?
way in grants, subsidies.
Well, this meeting is set to start
Can't remember
very
the
soon. We saw
exact
Marine Le
details,
Pen
but
arrive minutes ago.
know that to
Jordan
be
Bardella is expected really any minute now. Jordan Bardella, who could be France's next prime minister, especially if the French far right gets that absolute majority, that outright majority it dreams of. It seems quite difficult for the time being, but maybe it will manage to make some kind of alliance or convince some conservative MPs of joining the French far right. That's one of the aims of this cabinet meeting this morning, where the heavyweights of the National Rally will be carefully looking at results in each constituency, in each one of the 577 constituencies across France. And Jordan Bardella expected any minute now, who took to social media this morning to address the French and to tell them they really need to mobilize and turn up to vote on Sunday in order to give him that outright majority.
And Clovis, not just taking to social media, also publishing an open letter.
Indeed, Jordan Bardella calling the French to vote and make a clear decision. According to him, the responsible decision of picking the French far right in the on Sunday's second round of the legislative election. He says it's a decision between the national union that he's calling for.
I've said this a few times and I've not followed up on it, but I need to check what's happening in Holland as well, because Geert Wilders
New Popular Front, and Jordan Bardella describes it
won an election, done really well in an election. I'm pretty sure there was talk of him becoming Prime Minister or something along those lines. I need to get up to speed. The last thing I kind of half heard is he had to do a lot of compromising because he didn't quite have the numbers, and they gained a lot of power but not complete control. But I do need to get up to speed with what's happening in the old lowlands.
Run up to the second round of the legislative elections, with the National Rally, the French far right, at the gates of power here in France.
Clovis, thanks very much. Clovis Casali there at the National Rally's headquarters. Of course, we'll continue to talk to Clovis during the day if there are developments here on France 24. Now, meanwhile, hundreds of mostly left-wing supporters gathered last night at République in the centre of Paris. The demonstrators there calling for a huge turnout next weekend to block the National Front from taking an overall majority next weekend.
I hope that the political right will call for a widespread mobilization, just as the left did when it was Chirac against Jean-Marie Le Pen. If the right wing does not call for a coming together behind the left-wing Republican front, let's just hope that
and that's what I mean
because without that, I really
when
don't
I
know.
said
Let's just hope.
Reform, and Nigel Farage is going to be grooming everybody for 2029. Trying to mobilise people.
I don't think that enough people came out to vote.
People that otherwise would have Hitler behind them. Like.
I think that people here are extremist, and that it is Macron's fault, this rise of extremism. I'm worried about the far right because of their economics, but also the way they speak about immigration, what they say about dual nationals. I'm scared about all that. It will be an economic catastrophe and will divide the whole country. It is a hateful party.
So if the National Rally Party
all
is
these
successful,
organic,
it will be
grassroots things happening in all these different countries around the world, you know.
Nazi occupation. It's also looking
it's just a coincidence, it's all very identical. It's not even similar, it's fucking identical.
Political horse trading really is vital then, with mostly the left-wing and centrist alliances, as Ketavan was saying, having to decide whether to cooperate and stand down candidates. Eliza Herbert has the options for us.
The French elections exposed a polarised and mobilised country.
Round 1 voter turnout was the highest in nearly 40 years and a crushing success for the far-right National Rally Party, which received roughly 12 million votes, over 3 times the amount of 2022.
I intend to be a Prime Minister of a cohabitation government, respectful of the Constitution and the office of the President of the Republic, but uncompromising around the policies we will implement in the service of France and the French people.
But while the exit polls suggest the party won roughly 33% of the national vote, it is far from the whole story. On the left, the new Popular Front was projected to receive 28% and Emmanuel Macron's centrist Together alliance some 20%. But the makeup of
So
the
if they come together,
577-seat parliament will only be determined after the second round of voting on July 7. In seats where no candidate has reached 50% in the first round, the top 2 contenders qualify, plus those who received more than 12.5% of registered votes. In this case, it becomes a 3-way runoff, and with a record number of approximately 300 expected this election, the political deal-making has already begun. Because in theory, 3-way runoffs would favour the far right, but third-place candidates can drop out to alter the outcome. The left New Popular Front leaders vowed to do everything they can to stop the national rally.
Nowhere will we allow the national rally to win. And that's why, should they come out on top, while we come in third, we will withdraw our candidacy.
At the Prime Minister's headquarters, the Together coalition had a similar sentiment.
No vote must go to the national rally. In such circumstances, France deserves no hesitation on this. Never.
So, in France, they changed the National Front, their BNP, to the National Rally. And over here in the UK, they changed their BNP to UKIP. And now it's Reform.
Eliza Herbert reporting a lot more coverage, of course, of those French elections to come throughout the day here on France 24. We're going to bring something different now, though. We're going to bring you this week's magazine programmes here on The World Today.
Oh, well, there's nothing quite says news to me like magazine programmes. Well, let's go and have a wee look and see what the Krauts are saying here. Can find... There we go. A wee countdown and everything. Going to be reading with the French.
This is DW News coming to you live from Berlin. Voters in France flock to the far right. Supporters of the National Rally celebrate their strong lead in the first round of
same things happening in
elections.
Germany, apparently.
Party leader Marine Le Pen says
President
Macron's centrist camp is all but wiped out. She's urging voters to give the National Rally an absolute majority in next Sunday's final round. Also coming up, hundreds of ultra-Orthodox Jewish men clash with police as they protest a court ruling that ended their decades-long exemption from compulsory military service.
Get your costume off, pal. Get to the front line.
Scientists say it's another sign
Magic Man in the fucking sky says so.
Extreme weather more frequent and even more severe.
I didn't hear that there, but I'm assuming it started with global warming.
Hello, I'm Terry Martin. Thanks for joining us. France and the rest of Europe are coming to terms with the possibility of the far right gaining power in one of the EU's most powerful members. Marine Le Pen's National Rally has taken the largest share of the vote with 33% in the first round of snap parliamentary elections in France. President Emmanuel Macron's centrists, here in yellow, trailed in third place with 20%, behind a left-wing alliance that pulled 28% of the vote. Macron is calling on voters to prevent the far right from winning a governing majority in next Sunday's decisive final round.
It's not only the result the far right were hoping for, but one they were sure they would get.
My dear compatriots,
Democracy
no
has spoken,
surprise.
and the French have put the National Rally and its allies in the lead and practically wiped out Macron's bloc. In order to carry out the reforms that the country needs, we need an absolute majority so that Jordan Bardella is appointed Prime Minister by Emmanuel Macron.
Bardella, Marine Le Pen's protégé, was all smiles as he welcomed the results.
So that's the dude that they're trying to get as Prime Minister.
3 weeks after the European elections, which led to the call for these early elections, the French people have again delivered a resounding verdict and confirmed their clear desire for change.
From one end of the political spectrum to the other, a new far-left alliance in second place. They say they're the only alternative.
The country has to decide. Is it going to become more divided? Increase social inequalities based on religion, skin colour,
And just
social
and he's got
status, or where
somebody
you
with a
come from?
Palestine fucking scarf standing next to him.
Or is it going to pull
Aye,
together
mate, that's going to
and
get
be one
everybody saying
people
fucking kumbaya.
that is going to
dick.
work for the common good?
Fuck me.
Unconditionally.
No, man. Oh, the world's
is the choice
fucking
you
burning, man, and people ain't fucking trying to put out
Not
the fire
according
for
to the
some
governing
reason.
Ensemble, or Together party. France's Prime Minister issued his plea to the electorate.
Our objective is clear: to prevent the National Rally from getting an absolute majority in the second round, from dominating Parliament and therefore from governing the country with the nefarious plan it has in mind. I say
Far
this
right.
with all the force that this moment demands of each and every one of our voters. Not
feel like,
a single vote must go to the National Rally. In
pretty sure it's
circumstances
at
like
Reservoir
these,
Dogs.
France cannot afford to
This
hesitate
song's
at
from,
all.
I just feel like...
Voters cast their
Clowns to the
second
left of me,
ballots in a week.
jokers to the right,
President
here
Macron
I
will be
am,
hoping
stuck
for a
in the
different
middle
outcome.
with you. Yes,
Our correspondent Sonia Falnica in Paris. Tell me more about the outcome of this first round of voting.
Thank you very much, there, John.
Well, Terry, the big story here today in France are really those massive gains that the far right made in this first round of parliamentary elections.
She's not
really
doing the
improving on
Indian
its historical
stereotype
score in
any
recent
good.
European elections as well. The French media here
Yes,
today
we
are
really
calling
move
it
our head
a
very
shock.
much
They're
when we
calling it an
speak, so we
earthquake, urging voters to, set up now a barrage.
How dare you say that's a
against
stereotype of an
far-right.
Indian
And for
person?
President Macron, he called this
you're
snap
doing it?
election 3 weeks ago, hoping that the recent triumph of the far right in recent European elections, that would be just fleeting, that the opposite has happened. His gamble is now threatening not just to backfire, but is threatening to really upend the political order as we know it in France. Now, President Macron yesterday made a short speech and said, that he was urging all the voters to now rally behind a broad alliance. He said a broad Democratic Republican alliance to keep the far right out. But his centrist
Everybody
alliance
come
has
together
not made it clear whether
away
this broad
from-
alliance would also include the far left. The far left.
Oh,
France
here's a
Unabouted
thing
Party,
that
which is part
Nigel
of,
Farage
the
supporters
alliance
might
parties
not
on the left,
know,
known as the Popular
because
Front. They
it's
made
all
a
about the
strong
sound
showing
bites and all
yesterday.
that on the
And
social
this is
medias
because
rather
this
than
party has been members
paying
of this party have
attention
been
to what
accused
happens.
of anti-Semitism.
The
Its
last
leader,
general
Jean-Luc
election,
Mélenchon, is a very
the
provocative,
Conservatives
divisive
got
figure. So that
they got a
still remains
majority,
unclear.
and some would say it was a large
Now,
majority.
the far right has their
I don't know if
sights
they would
set
say
on
it
winning
was
an
a
absolute
landslide.
majority in the next round. That's next
but
weekend,
let
next
me
Sunday.
just
How
turn this
likely
down so I can
is
hear
it that
myself.
the far right will come out on top? And what would that mean, Sonia?
Nigel Farage pulled out all sorts of candidates up and down the UK with a deal with Boris Johnson. This isn't even a secret. This isn't a secret. This isn't a conspiracy. I didn't learn this from the YouTubes. I learned it from Nigel Farage and Boris Johnson telling us. So Nigel Farage, in fact, he alluded to it yesterday at some point. Nigel Farage pulled out a lot of UKIP candidates up and down the country to help the Conservatives get in, because he made a deal with Boris Johnson about Brexit. Now, Farage says that Boris Johnson didn't live up to his end of the bargain. But what I'm pointing out at is Nigel Farage is an old Conservative. They weren't Conservative enough for him. He came out and he started this wee sort of a branch to change the political landscape, and he's done it very successfully.
On the political fringes, and in last 2 decades, it has worked really hard under Marine Le Pen to kind of shed its extremist image and move away from some of its more radical positions. That seems to have worked. Marine Le Pen herself has kind of portrayed herself as a woman of the people. She never tires of talking about common concerns. Their campaigns on purchasing power and cost of living have really struck a chord in rural France, where people kind of feel forgotten, where they're struggling with the dwindling of public services. Some feel their neighborhoods are, overrun by immigration crime.
Days just frog march down your high street, stopping random strangers and
really expanded its voter base
yeah,
now
pal,
from traditional working class
I'm right.
neighborhoods to large areas across France, especially outside big cities. And pollsters are now saying they tend to find favor in almost
every next set of strangers.
Cutting now across gender, profession,
I'm far right.
And education. So they really seem to be.
Then even better, frog march down to a hotel full of brown people in boats and go up and start harassing them and telling them, see if we have our armed uprising, because we can't get voted in because no cunt supports us, but when we have our armed uprising, we're going to kick you out, going to send you back to where you came from. Keep frog marching around the hotel, just shouting out, I'm far right and I know I'm far right and I know
The issue has been a
mate, there you go, man. Like, it's the marching season up here in Glasgow. It's going to be hundreds of orange walks and all that coming out, man. That's how proud they are. Or the Orange Order, man. They get big bands and all that. Why don't you go and start marching about, just shouting far right, get the immigrants out, vaccines and abortions? Or why don't you go and harass people going into abortion clinics? I mean, you wouldn't be the first. There's gangs of people out there that will do that. In fact, there's even people in the States you could hook up with. Jim Dawson's pals, funnily enough, that will bomb and threaten to kill people.
Which they see as crucial to preserving Israel's Jewish identity. They say forced conscription will destroy their generations-old way of life.
So we have to fight them, because we don't want to go to the army. So that's the only thing we have to do. So that's what we're doing.
I believe that as much as we need an army in Israel, we also need the army of people sitting learning Torah. They're doing a lot, and we can't have them draft. We need the Torah in the country.
Scuffles later broke out between protesters and police. Water cannons filled with skunk-scented water,
costume, man. Costume
as well as police on foot and horseback, were used to disperse the crowds. The issue could topple Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government. Two parties in his coalition oppose the change. If they break ranks, the country could be sent to fresh elections, and he could be out of a job.
Well, that's kind of funny, because I thought he was already a dead duck. I thought he was already dead in the water. Jack puts it. That's what they're called, isn't they, DJ?
And a hospital. No group has claimed responsibility. The bombings took place in a region frequently attacked by the Islamist insurgent group Boko Haram. In Ukraine, one person was killed and 9 injured after a Russian missile struck a post office in the city of Kharkiv on Sunday. Fragments of a rocket also struck a residential building in the capital Kyiv in a separate attack, injuring at least one person. And Hurricane Beryl is picking up strength as it sweeps across the eastern Caribbean Sea. Residents of several Caribbean
islands.
This
sounds so strange. I'm so happy he called Kiev. Or did I hear wrong there? Am I just getting brainwashed into calling it Kiev?
The hurricane season than any other storm on record. At least 7 people have died in fierce storms in parts of France, Switzerland, and Italy. Extreme weather and torrential rain led to floods and landslides that were made worse by melting snow from the Alps. Scientists say climate change driven by human activity is increasing the frequency, severity, and duration of extreme weather events.
It's the worst flooding on record! How long have you been keeping records? 20 years? Honestly, see, I don't know. Maybe I'm just sucked in with all that stuff. There's just so many questions, and it's not hypocrisies, but oxymorons and shit. It's just unanswerable things like climate change, yeah. But what about the previous ice ages and all that kind of jazz? Like, what can you put them down to? Why all of a sudden is it this? And why is the answer screwing everybody over for money? I know what I think it's all about. I think it's all about trying to keep the emerging economies of the world in the box. You know, like you had all your big colonial powers who, because of all their dominance of the world through at the point when the explosion of the Industrial Revolution happened, and through the Industrial Revolution, the explosion of like mass education in particular areas of the world, so they were the centres of learning and stuff. And then as time moved on, like areas of the world like China, India, Indonesia, places with crazy populations compared to a lot of the old colonial powers who kind of dominated the intellectual world, and they seen the explosion of it, and they were like, right, we've just took over the world with the explosion of the Industrial Revolution, and we just went round and raped and pillaged everything, burnt, took, used, done whatever the fuck we wanted, and built all these industries and all these bags of money and all these institutions on the back of all this money, but us allowed to go. Nobody's going to stop us going round the world and raping and pillaging and fucking doing whatever we want. Here, you want that? Here's some fucking gunships, go and take it. You know, colonial, the good old days. Some would say the good old days. And then there's the emerging powers such as China, even Russia to a certain extent, and through the power of dominating the educational centres of the world, the old industrial centres of the world, wanted to try and put the kibosh on these other emerging countries just being able to burn, rape and pillage whatever they want, because they're sitting in countries with pretty much endless resources such as Russia, China, etc. Even Africa as well. Sorry, I'm leaving Africa out. So if they were able to just go fucking carte blanche and do what the colonial powers done back in the day and just start raping and pillaging all the resources at fucking will, they would just overtake the West and the old colonial powers like that through just their absolute dominance of the amount of shit that they've got. That's my conspiracy.
This bridge proved no match for the torrents of water which tore through here. Heavy rain hammered parts of Switzerland, melting snow compounded the deluge. The alpine town of Saas-Grund was particularly hard hit. Rivers and streams burst their banks top.
Right, well, it's nothing we've not seen before in pretty much every corner of the globe. That was a good wee game, a good wee day of football yesterday, even though England did screw me over, man. I'm making videos laughing at England and I'm going to get a wee 14 quid or something in the bank. And they fucking scored. Right, so Al Jazeera... let's go and touch base with Al Jazeera, see what they're saying here.
Rescue them because the ambulances are unable to reach that area. Also,
I should be able to get back to the top of the hour news, no problem.
Each planetary farm and not released from prison. Hello, I'm Sami Zaidan. This is the News Hour live from Doha, coming up in the next 60 minutes. Starved, beaten and tortured in Israeli detention. The director of Gaza's
well, if you're an England fan, I suppose the good news is he's get through. So.
A woman and a child are killed in an Israeli military raid in Tulkarm and Nur Shams in the occupied West Bank.
That says war that
France's far-right national
army
rally gets the
bulldozer.
most number of votes in the first round of parliamentary elections, with President Macron's alliance trailing in third place. Plus,
I'm Rob McBride in Niigata, Japan, that wants its share of the country's tourism boom, just as other parts of the country are saying enough visitors, thank you.
I'm Gemma Nash with sport. As England somehow stay in the Euros, Jude Bellingham's overhead kick prevents a humiliating defeat to Slovakia and helps them progress to the quarter-finals.
Man.
it's 10 a.m. GMT, and we start in Gaza, where the director of a Shifa hospital has been released from an Israeli prison. That's after being detained for 8 months. Dr. Mohammed Abu Salmieh gave a harrowing account of the treatment he and other Palestinian prisoners faced while in Israeli detention. He says they were tortured, beaten and starved, and Israeli forces detained him with no legal authority.
Many of the Palestinian detainees were killed under interrogation. They were denied food, water and medicine. Many of the medical staff, including doctors and nurses, I left them behind as they are still in the Israeli prisons. From among the medical staff, Dr. Adnan al-Burj and Dr. Iyad al-Rantisi were killed, and may they rest in peace. The Israeli occupation forces left has no regard to any red lines.
Hind Khoudary joins us live from Deir al-Balah in central Gaza. And Hind, Mohammed Abu Salmieh, just one of many humanitarian workers, medical staff that have been taken by the Israelis. What are we hearing has happened to the rest?
Well,
just
Sami,
never
I was
changes,
just talking right now to another released prisoner from Al-Shifa hospital. His name
when
is
this started,
Ashraf,
there was such an outroar. Everybody
arrested
was
3 months ago when the Israeli
demanding a
forces
ceasefire and all that.
Al-Shifa
Now it's
hospital
just
on the second time.
after a while,
He
it's
said that it was very
white noise,
cold.
isn't it?
It was during the
It's
winter,
like
and
Syria.
they were forced to take their clothes off.
People
It was
don't
very
even
cold and they
hear
were
that
freezing. He said
anymore.
that every single
Or
day,
Ukraine's became a
before
bit of
and
white
after
noise,
being interrogated,
and this has
they
became a
were
bit of white
beaten
noise
up and
after the
tortured.
initial.
He said that there was a lack of
fruit,
food, lack of water,
after the initial
also
traction it
lack
gets,
of health and medical treatment. He showed me his
kinda
photo
gets less and
before
less and
he
less on the
was,
news cycle and just comes out of people's
arrested, and I did not believe that this was the same person I was seeing in front of me. And this is just a little bit of the stories that we have been receiving and testimonies from the people who were arrested. They're saying that there are still a lot of Palestinians that were arrested from different areas across the Gaza Strip who are still in those Israeli prisons. But it's very important also to highlight the families of the missing Palestinians, the Palestinian families who do not know anything about their missing family members. And we were approached by a couple of Palestinians who were saying that they have no idea if their family members are arrested. They have been missing for months and they did not hear anything about them. And they do not have any organization that would give them any information about them. But we're supposed to hear more testimonies from more Palestinians that have been released earlier today.
Now,
shows how skinny they are, or like,
we're hearing about a lot of families, kids trapped. Any help reaching them to help them evacuate the area?
Sami, no one was able to reach Al-Shuja'iyya for the 5th consecutive day. We have been receiving a couple of appeals from families that were trapped. They are unable to leave because there's quadcopters, there's drones who are shooting anyone who's trying to move. There has been endless airstrikes and endless artillery shelling. We have been collecting news about Shuja'iyya from the neighboring areas and the neighboring people, but Palestinian families who were able to
Just
call
as
for
tragic
help
now
and for rescue,
as it
they
was
said that
weeks
there
ago.
has been no food, no water, unable to part of able to and Sami.
Without charge by Israeli forces.
The Israeli occupation forces turn the blind eye to all the international laws and treaties. In means
Palestinians in
Been
Gaza,
doing
how
that
like beatings, torture, they say, even
Like
breaking
think.
of fingers.
I would say for
Extremely
over 10
disturbing,
years that
and
I
it
know
brings
about,
a lot of
that I've been paying
nostalgia
attention.
for not only myself but the thousands of other Palestinians who were taken into custody, whether in the West Bank or in Gaza, and put under this kind of administration abduction, where the Israelis are taking into custody thousands of people right now within their interrogation camps, in their solitary confinement, doing all sorts of different kind of mental, physical torture onto the people there, both men and women, children and elder ones, and very respectable leaders in the Palestinian medical health organization, such as Dr. Muhammad Abu Salmiya, who is now a beacon of hope and provides a big source of pride to Palestinians after hearing his testimony that despite everything he has gone through, he has come to the world and telling them, look, we are determined, we are resilient, this will not stop us.
And something new concerning the Israeli
whether things right now to such can only be as the more ministers
You get rid of that nut job, man.
Special any Democrat, it's a process on the ground, not
He's just
a
going to
legal
continue
process
with
of
that
arrest
stuff.
and detention, right?
I agree.
As soon as the war ends, he's out
100%.
by a lots of reports.
I hope that what happened to Dr. Muhammad Abu Salmiya from the...
All right, thank you so much for coming in, and Sur Shuman. Thank you. Of Tulkarm, a woman and a child are among the dead. Raids in the occupied West Bank have been a near daily occurrence since Israel's war on Gaza began last October. Well, Nidat Ibrahim joins us now from Ramallah. And Nidat, the pictures that we're getting are pretty dramatic. Houses on fire, even roads, infrastructure look torn up. What are you hearing from people?
People are telling us that the raid, although it started, the Israeli forces started to withdraw, the raid is continuing with the Israeli forces returning back to the street between the Nur Shams refugee camp and the Tulkarm refugee camp. A drone strike has targeted one of the places, one of the houses, leading to the killing of one woman in her 40s. She was hit by the shrapnel. In addition to that, a 15-year-old has been hit by a bullet to the head. This tells you about the intensity of the raid that is happening now around the same, ruin the damage for these
what's the death poll up to now? About 40,000 or something?
Round next week. We have two correspondents covering the story for us. In a moment, we'll speak to Bernard Smith, who's in Paris. Step Vassen, though, is standing by for us in Nice, where she filed this report.
Opponents of the far-right national rally wasted no time. After a historic election night, they got straight back to campaigning.
The results are dramatic. We never saw the extreme
Did she say campaigning or complaining?
right having so much vote in the population. It's like 12 million of people voting for people that are racist, homophobic person, that are that doesn't believe in climate change.
Yes, vote against
Sound
the National
familiar?
Front,
I
but
thought
vote
this
for
must
who?
be a
If we
grassroots
have a
thing.
choice between two extremes, it's not a choice that motivates people. So what's the other solution? Unfortunately, I don't see it.
National Rally's leader Marine Le Pen urged her supporters to turn out like never before in order to win next week's second round.
To begin this change in government and drive the reforms that the country needs, we need an absolute majority in order for John Bardella to be named in 8 days Prime Minister by Emmanuel Macron.
28-year-old Bardella is the fresh face of the far-right National Rally. The rebranded, once politically toxic National Front is now mainstream, closer to power than it's ever been.
Yep, exactly like the elements
I
of the
intend to be the
BNP.
Prime Minister for everyday life, the one who prioritises defence of purchasing power, the restoration of law and order and security throughout the country, and of course the resumption of our migration policy.
Hoping to head off the far right is a coalition of parties from the left and far left, but its leader Jean-Luc Mélenchon is a polarizing figure who puts off some potential voters. And Prime Minister Gabriel Attal's centrist party, together the creation of President Emmanuel Macron, is trailing badly after the first round.
The far right is at the gates of power. Never has the National Assembly been at risk of being dominated by the far right. Therefore, our objective is clear: to prevent the National Rally from having an absolute majority and to govern the country with the disastrous project which is its own.
Macron called a snap election after his party's defeat to the National Rally in European elections, a high-stakes gamble that could go against him. The best he can hope for now is a hung parliament.
Waking up to the prospect of a first far-right government, political opponents are wasting no time. Negotiations to form a front against the National Rally are in full swing in hundreds of constituencies all over France. President Macron is hoping that this so-called Republican front will be as successful as it was in the past. Others, though, are not so sure. Step Vassen, Al Jazeera, Nice.
Well, Step Vassen joins us now live from Nice. So, Step, you're in one of the strongholds of the National Rally. What's the reaction been like there to the results so far?
A very divided mood here in the south of France. As you said, the National Rally is very popular here. They did really well, more than 40%. Many of the candidates got, a few of them even more than 51, 56%. So there is a huge shock among the opponents of the far right here. And also we've been speaking to voters on the streets here of Nice. They said they are worried. It's a sad day, they said, but they're also concerned about their future because many of them here have a migrant background and they say they don't feel safe. They could turn into second-class citizens. We saw this morning the left bloc already campaigning very early, and one of the women who was campaigning told us that already very aggressive responses she got from the public. Some people also saying that Hitler in Nazi Germany wasn't even a bad person. So she was quite shocked already with a quite polarized mood already after the first round.
And Step, the National Rally already focusing on the next round, right?
I think that's in a week.
Absolutely. Eric Ciotti, who is the leader of the Republican Party, he is running here for the National Rally, has already been tweeting quite aggressive campaigning, I would say. He's warning people, voters, that the other option would be voting for the far left. So what the National Rally has done so far is portraying the left bloc as very extremist, as communist, as very far left, and even as anti-Semitic. And he has been posting video of protest against the Rally Party, National Rally Party, yesterday, showing some kind of damages done to shops. And he says, when we will be in power, which he hopes to get after the second round, then we will restore order. And that's also something that Jordan Bardella, the leader of the National Rally, has been tweeting about. He has actually published a letter to the French people saying that the left will be a danger to the Republic and that people should vote for the far right. They hope to get an absolute majority, and that's why this campaign is starting in the second round pretty aggressively.
All right, that is Step Vassen from Nice in the south of France. Let's take this north now to Bernard Smith. He's joining us from the French capital, Paris. So first of all, Bernard, is Emmanuel Macron regretting his decision to have called that snap election? How is he dealing with the way things are going so far?
Well, what Emmanuel Macron said last night, he said that faced
with the Rassemblement National, the national rally, it's time for a large, clearly democratic and Republican rally for the second round. He's not saying who people should vote for in the second round, but what he's saying is he doesn't want the national rally, the far right, to get this absolute majority that it's searching for. But this gamble that Macron took after the European elections in the hope that there would be what they've called in the past a Republican front that would coalesce to stop the far right getting power, that sort of idea has been crumbling over the last few years, and there wasn't really that Republican front this time round. It's very difficult for him, really, because whether the far right or the left coalition are the largest party, they form the governing coalition. Macron, it's sort of over. The Macron project is over because he will be forced to appoint a prime minister from a party with which he has huge differences, whether that's from the far right or whether it's from the left, and he will be forced. The government will pursue an agenda not of his choosing. So most likely you'll have this cohabitation period where you have a president from one party and a prime minister from another. It's a very difficult, can be a very difficult time, can lead to political deadlock, but Macron becomes essentially more of a figurehead president for the remaining 3 years of his presidency than one with any political power.
All right, Bernard, maybe it's a good moment to take a little bit of a step back and look through the whole range of winners and losers from last night.
Well, really, the national rally, they came out top because they almost doubled their vote based on the 2022 legislative elections with 34% of the votes. So they got 18.7 last time round. They've never got over 20%.
So it was 33.
Then you have this far left alliance coming in second with 28%.
Changed
and
it, or they're reporting different numbers, or he slipped up?
Right, trailing behind in third place on 20%. Now, what happens this week is while those percentages are a good indication of the overall nationwide share of the vote, they don't really tell you who's going to have the most seats in the Parliament after next Sunday, because it's a constituency by constituency race. So you've already got, I think it's 75 seats were won outright. That's where the candidate got more than 50% in each seat, but you're left with 537 individual races. So now you have to look at when you've got a 2 or 3 horse race in some seats, one party may withdraw a candidate in the hope that people will coalesce. This is from the anti-national front national groups will coalesce around someone to stop the far right getting in. So this is what's going to happen this week. Candidates have until, I think, Tuesday to withdraw or not. So in the next couple of days, we'll see if there's any horse trading going along, as there is this attempt again.
That's democracy scam for you.
Far right getting into power, although it's been successfully detoxified.
Just all come together to keep the pain out.
More willing now to vote for it.
Or
right,
try.
Thanks so much. Bernard Smith there from Paris.
Even if they all come together, I think there might still be a chance.
We've got more elections to talk about. Immigration, one of the major issues in the UK general election on Thursday. Both major parties say they want to bring the numbers down, but many industries say this is having an effect. Al Jazeera visited a berry farm in central England that employs foreign staff and is now facing labour shortages. Milena Vasilovic reports.
In the Garden of England, this berry farm stretches for miles across some of the most fertile land in the UK. Inside, the pace is quick and the fruit plentiful, but what it lacks is enough workers to pick the crop.
All my work are used to coming from Eastern Europe, and when you go back, British government didn't let them to come into the country, and we losing about £1.5 million.
The end of the freedom of movement with the EU isn't the only problem.
I can't pick it because I haven't got the staff, and that is what's happened in the last 3 years. So you've had Brexit, freedom of movement, you've had COVID, knock-on effect. Then we had, obviously, the Ukrainian war. We trained up staff, we lost that trained staff because of the war.
These issues working up a perfect storm of labour shortages that the National Farmers Union says caused production to be cut by a third in some businesses since 2020. And though the government introduced a 6-month seasonal workers visa, farmers here say it's not enough.
At the moment, for my industry, we've got 45,000 licenses, seasonal workers licenses that are coming in. Do we need that? Yes. Do we need double that? We 100% need. We're growing more. We're getting better at growing. If we're getting better at growing, we need the manpower to help us grow.
But politicians, both in office and in opposition, have vowed to reduce immigration, not bring more people in.
The current Conservative government wanted to encourage farmers to gradually start replacing overseas workers with British ones, but that hasn't happened. And in reality, the majority of people who work in farms like this one come from abroad. Where are you from?
Philippines.
From India, Uzbekistan,
Bulgaria,
Macedonia.
They have tried to recruit locally here, but without much success.
Make sure they don't leave any food behind.
And their business model depends on trained staff coming back season after season.
It's a skilled job. It takes ages to learn it. It's very, very difficult. The crop here, they last 2 or 3 days. If you miss 2 days, the crop is gone. If you don't have the people, we are lost.
A steady supply of overseas workers may not be what the politicians say they want, but it is what farmers here say they need. Milena Veselinovic, Vejle Vivsham, UK.
All right, let's go live to London now. Join our correspondent, Harry Fawcett. And Harry, how are the candidates banging that campaign drum on these last few days on the trail, right?
That's right. It's very much the final stretch. 3 days left of campaigning, including this Monday. And the picture is still looking pretty grim for the governing Conservative Party. If you look at the polls, it just hasn't shifted throughout the campaign. Or if it has, both Labour and the Tories, the Conservatives, have come down by about the same relatively small amount. And so the distance between them is unbridged as far as the Conservatives are concerned. So the Prime Minister,
National Front man, they're the kind of remnants of the French's France's BMP.
Sunday, when they came back to win against Slovakia, there was
certainly no central.
I
think they would even
say to them with a message, it's not over until it's
themselves.
over. However,
they're definitely on the far right spectrum.
That's centred around trying to minimise any potential Labour majority in Parliament after the election. And so we're hearing from the Prime Minister, who's campaigning in the Midlands today, with the message, don't surrender your voice to Labour. His Home Minister talking about the need to prevent Labour from being able to, in his words, gerrymander the system in terms of extending the right to vote to the 16-year-olds and to prisoners, and to create some kind of permanent Labour government in the future. That's the message coming from the Conservatives on this morning. Labour, meanwhile, is talking about the need for people to come out and vote for change if they want it. Some potential nervousness about a foregone conclusion, potentially suppressing the Labour vote, and so they've been handing out pillowcases with an image of a reclining Rishi Sunak saying, don't wake up on Friday with 5 more years.
That's UK politics, pillowcases and cheap-ass sunglasses.
Continuing his very high-profile campaigning
I'm talking
style
about
of
John
sort of novelty campaign events.
At the SNP
him doing a bungee jump on the south coast in Eastbourne earlier
Max
on
Cus for
Monday
these is
morning, with a message,
mine's
do
broke.
something
Can you find
haven't
other
done
ones
before,
which I
vote
have now
Liberal
found?
Democrat. It's
Which
trying
are
to very
shite
much
low.
take it to
And these
Conservative held
kids,
constituencies
plastic ones, were the
in
only
the
ones I
south of
could find in
England.
Tesco.
Whereas Reform UK's leader, Nigel Farage, he is continuing his recent battling against the media. He's been accusing Channel 4 News of election interference with its expose of racist language by some campaign team members in Clacton.
Well, I would agree with that. It's obvious election interfering. I mean, if RT done something like that, you could clearly see it was a hit piece done against one political party over another. Because let's get this right, I'm pretty sure, and hopefully people will get what I mean here. If you followed anybody around 24/7 long enough and tried to provoke them or what have you, or just followed them around randomly, I'm pretty sure you could find normal people saying the most stupidest things that they wouldn't do when they were on the campaign trail. The most idiotic stuff, easy peasy. So Channel 4 are obviously doing that to try and affect the election, trying to bring down or show what they don't like about reform.
Seat that Nigel Farage is trying to win. Channel 4 News rejecting those accusations, saying it stands by its journalism. He's also saying that he will continue his boycott of the BBC after an event last week, which he says had a rigged audience against him. Again, the BBC very much sticking by its position and refuting those claims.
And that's Harry Fawcett from London. Well, Claire Purcell is the Chief of Staff of the UK House of Commons and a former advisor to Conservative MP Caroline Noakes. Claire's with us live now from Kent in the United Kingdom. So, first of all, I wonder if you've heard anything in the last 24 hours, 48 hours from Rishi Sunak on some of these key issues that would make you doubt the prediction that the Conservatives are heading towards a huge defeat.
I wish I had. I think that the polls have been so widely in favour of the Labour Party now for some time, and the general public seems to be incredibly angry with the Conservative government as it stands, that I don't think there is anything that the Prime Minister can say at the moment that will make those polls change in any meaningful fashion. I think that we are going to see a majority for the Labour Party. I think that the Conservative Party are now looking as to how best to minimise the losses of their MPs, and how many seats they have left really is up for discussion. I've seen anything from 50 seats to perhaps 150 seats, which, given that we've come from sort of 350, it's quite a drop.
For our international viewers, explain to us how the Conservatives went from the good performance they had in the last general election to where we are now. And what do you put it down to? The cost of living, immigration, or just general leadership chaos, I think, for want of a better term?
I think it's a mixture of all of those things. In 2019, we saw Boris Johnson lead the Conservative Party into a majority government and was quite comfortable with that. But then, unfortunately, we have seen the COVID pandemic, we have seen outbreak of war in Ukraine, and now in the Middle East, in Israel and Gaza. And I think that all of those aspects have not helped. I think that also the infighting in the ruling Conservative Party has had a hugely detrimental effect. We have got rid of Boris Johnson as Prime Minister, put in Liz Truss as a very short-term Prime Minister for 45 days, and then landed upon Rishi Sunak. And I think that the public now look at the Conservative Party as being in a mess. They do not have a consistent message, and they're not dealing with the issues that affect people, like the cost of living, like the cost of heating their homes and getting their children into a school, and things like healthcare. And the public just feel now very angry, very let down. And the number of Conservative MPs who have been caught up in different scandals has just brought about the image of a party that is in tatters.
All right, we've kind of gone through the sins of the Conservatives. Is that the reason Labour is, shall we say, looks like it's on the winning end of the curve now? Or is it because the alternative is so bad? Or is it because Labour do have a much clearer, convincing plan on some of the key issues like immigration and the cost of living? Do they have a plan?
I don't think it's as straightforward as suggesting that the Labour Party have a plan that people are enjoying and would like to see enacted. I think some of the success of the Labour Party at the moment is purely down to the fact that they are not the ruling Conservative Party. there are a lot of questions over Labour's migration
because they're not the
policy.
Conservatives.
When you look at what it is they want to do, it doesn't make a massive difference to the numbers that are coming here, either legally or across the channel on small boats. There don't seem to be any real answers other than they want to smash the gangs across Europe. So I'm not sure the public are sold entirely on those policies. I don't think that most people think they have a plan on migration at all. But what they do have is not the baggage of the Conservative Party. So it is an incredibly interesting time for British politics. And of course, you have the rise of a party like Reform UK, who are pretty much an anti-immigration party, which will look to sweep up some of those votes.
All right, it's good to get your thoughts and analysis. Thanks so much for joining us, Claire Persol, Chief of Staff of the UK House of Commons. Still ahead on Al Jazeera, the only bridge linking two cities near Sudan's capital is destroyed. We'll be live in Khartoum for the latest. And in sport, a new world record with less than a month to the Olympics. That's coming up with Gemma.
It's going to on Rumble. You can not find the top of the hour news on Rumble. I'm going to give it my best shot, but it won't work.
And do not mean a NATO Asian version, but it is nothing but retro.
Global South is to bring forward their own aims, and the International Monetary Fund is clearly steered by the US and the Western European countries. So they use.
I think that's him talking about Nigeria, isn't
significant amounts of money.
It's Kenya, sorry. I think this is him talking. They talk about South Africa, then
so I think after this coalition government, we're going to see a stronger ally for US and Western countries from this DANC government. So it's almost like South Africa has taken a step back, not only politically, but in terms of administrating critical areas of the economy.
No one is heeding Beijing's call for peace. That's according to the Serbian president, commenting on China's efforts to resolve the Ukraine conflict. Alexander Vucic contrasted this with the role played by Western powers, highlighting their indifference to the carnage on the battlefield. Why? Because, he says, their boys aren't the ones dying.
Because no one will immediately stop the fire as the People's Republic of China is asking for. Because everyone wants to defeat the other. Because until people die from the West or only volunteers die, they don't care how much Ukrainians will suffer. They don't care how much Russians or anyone else will suffer. Russia has enough oil, gas, phosphate, gold, silver, everything you need.
In the meantime, Russian forces are advancing all along the front line. The country's defense ministry reports that army units have now taken control of the Spornaya and Nova Alexandrovka settlements. They're both located in the Donetsk Republic. Some footage right here of a Acacia self-propelled howitzer in the area taking aim at Ukrainian positions. Well, the weekend also saw the IMF approve $2.2 billion in additional funding for Ukraine under its existing loan program. However, one of the terms dictates that the country step up its fight against corruption. Of course, in recent times, concern has been growing over reports of officials pocketing millions of Western aid dollars. RT correspondent Roman Kosrev.
How many war zones got a
The International Monetary Fund has released another $2.2 billion from its $15.6 billion bailout package for cash-strapped Ukraine. However, the notoriously corrupt Kyiv government was given an ultimatum. The IMF demands that Ukraine amend the customs code in order to enhance the fight against corruption.
There was a point
and
in my
ensure
life where I used to
transparency in
think
the
this was
recruitment
cutting-edge
of customs
news.
staff.
On anti-corruption, they commit to advance critical reforms such as strengthening the criminal procedural code, creating a new high administrative code, and completing the first ever external audit of the National Anti-Corruption Bureau. The external audit of NABU should be completed promptly.
In the possibility of defeating corruption in
She had no
The
idea
Kharkov
what she was
Regional
doing.
State Administration has transferred multi-million contracts for the construction of fortifications.
According to our accounts, 30% of the economy is potentially in the shadows. Gravitated towards her because she was a good-looking bit of poontang.
I think it's obvious that this
corruption-related arrests in Ukraine was meant to show Kyiv's determination to fight graft in its largely oligarchic society. However, Ukraine's Western supporters still claim that's not good enough.
Oh, I knew that. So they're talking about Ukraine and
a nation also up to its neck in international debt.
Might as well just get confessions of an economic hit.
The East African nation was proclaimed by Washington as the main U.S. ally outside of NATO. Thousands of people took to the streets in Kenya to protest a controversial draft budget. In an attempt to fulfill an IMF requirement to pay off loans, the government proposed to raise taxes on a number of vital goods. That caused riots throughout the country. In the Kenyan capital, Nairobi, protesters stormed the parliament building and set it ablaze. Chaos ensued as the police opened fire. As a result, 23 people were killed and at least 200 others were wounded.
Why is it killing us? Why is it killing us?
The revolution will not be televised, it will be live streamed. Yeah, freedom!
The main reason for that violence, a provision of significant amounts of money in the new budget for the renovation of residences of the country's top officials. Be it Ukraine, Kenya, or any other nation in heavy debt, the IMF requirements seem to always negatively affect the poorest and most vulnerable members of society, while the elites continue to bask in benefits and illegal gains.
We're so close to world peace. You're so right, Gigi. I can see the unicorns and the rainbows for here, man.
And in this dependency, it tries to bring forward their own aims, and the International Monetary Fund is clearly steered by the US and the Western European countries. So they use it as a means of...
Well, I think we've touched on that. Is this the South China Sea?
The US is now claiming that the US-Japan ROK relations are just cooperative ones for strengthening regional stability and security and do not mean a NATO Asian version, but it is nothing but rhetoric to evade international criticism of the formation of an aggressive bloc.
Well, the DPRK is referring there to the US conducting trilateral military exercises with allies in the East China Sea on Saturday. This footage right here shows the USS Theodore Roosevelt, an American nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, as it prepared for the event in South Korea. The drills have been dubbed Freedom Edge, and Seoul says they're aimed at boosting the defense capabilities of the nations involved. Washington has increased its military presence in the Asia-Pacific following President Putin's visit to North Korea last month. While in Pyongyang, Russia signed a number of bilateral agreements, including a new pact, pledging mutual defense if either nation is attacked. We heard from the chair professor of the Soochow University, Victor Gao. He believes that the US global military presence incites a war and really has nothing to do with maintaining peace.
I think this is a strong indication that the United States is not doing its homework to promote peace, but just the contrary.
So Chow University
really
must be a Chinese one, Beijing.
Or Cold War, or even hot war. Now, this is the last thing that is needed in the world of today. I hope the United States can really exercise its global leadership by advocating peace rather than standing for war. Because war will be
no money in peace, man. Come on.
In the world of today, armed with nuclear weapons by quite a few countries, war between and among major powers will lead to Armageddon. And I hope Washington will really appreciate this point rather than act in wanton disregard of the huge stakes involved in any war between and among major countries in the world of today. For Russia and the DPRK, they are neighboring countries. They have full rights to conduct their bilateral relations in their own way, according to their own decision, if it is not in violation of the United Nations Security Council's resolutions. Therefore, I think whatever the United States is thinking about the bilateral relations or the improvement of the bilateral relations between Russia and DPRK, the United States does not have a legitimate reason to interfere or intervene in the bilateral relations between DPRK and Russia.
In Jerusalem, thousands hit the streets in protest of a new bill that's set to draft ultra-Orthodox Jews into the military.
Touched on that. They don't even agree with Zionism. Cool costumes.
Missiles are implicated in the deaths of
Assange and missiles.
WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange walks free after 12 years in exile, 5 years in solitary confinement.
That looks like it's fair to
the
America.
Deaths of innocent lives in Russia, and armed men attempt to overthrow the government in Bolivia. It's been a wild week of gripping stories, and we're recapping it all right here. This is Direct Impact.
We'll need to check that out at some point. Anywho's, I'm going to go and make the most of the rest of the day and see if I can brave the shitty weather out there on my bike. I don't know. Sometimes it's good having the cold weather, sometimes it's freezing. So there you have it. The Le Pen has got in. This, again, is no surprise. Rise of the right in the EU continues. I'm pretty sure that was after Wilders had his victory. Well, GG will probably do a cycle because I don't know if my back's up for a run yet, mate. I don't want to fuck around with it. I'm not even joking. Just with the boom, 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 boom. Low impact is where I'm at. So this says it's no accident. It's no accident. It's no surprise what's happened to Le Pen. That was like 4 months ago, and even before then, the writing was on the wall. For me, it was because you could see the similarities between. Well, I could see the similarities between what was happening here in the UK and what was happening over in other countries as well. It's happening in Germany. I don't know the ins and outs of it. It's happened in Portugal. It's happened up in Sweden, I believe, as well. It's happening in Hungary. And when I say it's happening, I mean there's a real shift of the political pendulum of those countries moving to the what would be said as we're just moving a lot more to the right than where it was. So if you take the pendulum of the general, the average political consciousness in the country, it's slowly, in fact, not slowly, very drastically moving very quickly to the right. and this is getting reflected in a lot of the elections and stuff. So watch this space. It's going to continue, I think. Well, it's not only going to continue, it's going to get cemented with whatever's going to happen in this country with reform. And what's happening in France, what's happening in America as well. Same sort of rules apply. And I would argue this drastic change is allowed to happen because of the explosion of social media and people now using that as a way of electioneering, mobilising people into extreme camps and getting them to vote one way or the other. And I think most people now are long enough in the tooth with the internet to be able to like stand back and go, oh, how's it changed me? How's it changed people I know? How's it changed the political landscape? And it's definitely undeniable, man. Hashtag in the morning, still morning, in the morning, my man. What did you think about the football last night, man? I'm making videos laughing at England and shit, and then the pricks go and play well for like, what, 2 minutes? They don't even play well for 2 minutes. Get over it. Fucking wankers, man. They get Scotland's luck, the pricks. They're like luck sponges. They're going to dance into the final without even fucking having a good game of football, man. Fan dance. Anyway, Farage. Good English name, that. Is it French? Farage. I'm thinking of like some sort of a yogurt shit. What's with the heat kips? That? Well, I've always wanted a mohawk, so I gave myself a mohawk. It's only hair, man. It'll grow back. And Mad Max is out. So I wanted to fit in Gotham City. Fran Healy. Oh, do you know what? I know what you're talking about. He had that wee pokey up bit, didn't he? That's right, by the way. I remember that. That is it wasn't in my head when I was doing it, buddy. I don't know what was in my head when I was doing it, but it's only here, my man. Hopefully you're well, wee jock. Mate, see when you comment in the comment section, I get a different name. I don't know. It happens with some other people as well. I don't know how the algos are doing that, but they're doing it. Were you watching the football last night, Doberman? Protestant refugees from the Catholics. Farage, the secret small hat. Farage has done a... See, the people that employed him or the people that are behind him in the movement that he's behind, he's done a grand job. You could even say it was some of the... Well, I was going to say you could even say it's some of the old money elements from the BNP. But he came out the other day when he was on BBC Question Time thing, and I don't know whether he said this before, it kind of makes sense, but he came out and said that I've done more to fight the far right than anybody else. Asked the BNP supporters who were using the BNP as a protest vote. Don't know about yous, when I want to protest, I vote BNP. Anywho, he came out and says, vote for me. So, he's like, you could argue he's like the Predator. No, I know the Predator. He's camouflage, BNP in camouflage. BNP with a paint job. You know, because ultimately they're shifting the people's perspective and the political pendulum of the country in one direction, and that's to the stage of, like, I mean, the Rwanda thing wasn't bad enough for these people, man. And somebody was talking about Farage's name, that's very English. I'm pretty sure he's shacked up with a Pole or something. Or maybe I've just made that up, but I'm pretty sure his wife, because I remember hearing this, just a wee interesting side note. His missus wasn't British, you know. But it's like, if you look around you, you've got international nationalism. It's an oxymoron in itself. Hashtag GG damned wee jock. Thanks for DJ. Thanks for joining, guys and girls. Stick a wee thumbs up if you appreciate this. I shall be doing one tomorrow morning as well. Hopefully at 9 o'clock this time. I was a wee bit late this morning, but hey ho, that's just the way. That's the way it goes. And I go out and make the most of the rest of your day, even though it looks pish out there. Get it? Got it. Good. Have a nice afternoon, y'all. Get cheese, no cats or cheese. I'm needed in this film, man. Clips. And remember, citizens, always subscribe. Hit the notification bell as well. And $19.95 plus shipping and handling will keep you out of hell.